We'll start with DeShon Elliott, who, look, I have said more than once since his arrival that I am a massive fan of what DeShon Elliott brings to the field. I am a massive fan of DeShon Elliott's personality on the field. And to be quite honest with you, I am a massive fan of DeShon Elliott's personality and character off the field, because this dude is a villain. He loves being the villain. He embraces every second of it. He liked an Instagram post from us calling him a villain, which shows that he's just doubling down on the situation here. He's all in on being the guy that every other team should hate, most other players should hate. But in Pittsburgh, you got to love him. It's kind of like, this is a bad and extreme example. CJ Gardner-Johnson, who is just a playmaker, but also the most annoying human on a football field. DeShon Elliott has somewhat of those characteristics where it's just smack talk, smack talk, smack talk. But guess what? I'm going to smack you right in the mouth when we get on that football field. You got to love it. Aaron Rodgers, yesterday, 2 days ago, I think, was named the betting favorite to end up in Pittsburgh in 2025. We have had more than one person say out loud over the last couple of weeks that the Pittsburgh Steelers could be the team for Aaron Rodgers. This is a Brett Favre, Minnesota Vikings situation. He comes back and he's got one more great year behind him. That's what could happen with Mike Tomlin and company. Who cares that he's throwing it to nobody? It's all about what's going on and who the quarterback is, which is only Aaron Rodgers. Well, DraftKings took that personally. They said, we're going to make the odds. And DeShon Elliott took it even more personally and said, no, dog, it ain't happening. He tossed on Instagram yesterday and started a frenzy. It was like somebody was stalking his Instagram comments, just waiting for it to drop, because the second that it was discovered, it blew up the internet. He comments and says, quote unquote here, leave his ass at the retirement home. And I bet you he said it just like that. Leave his ass at the retirement home. Saying, quite frankly, no, dog. I don't want Aaron Rodgers here. We're good. I took that two ways. The first way was DeShon Elliott being DeShon Elliott and saying, nope, not happening. For some reason or another, I have a vendetta against Aaron Rodgers, probably because the way he's acted in the last year or so doesn't really give you I'm hunting for a Super Bowl vibes. It's more so I deserve to be handed a Super Bowl vibe. And that's not what DeShon Elliott or anybody in Pittsburgh is. I took it the second way as we've got our quarterback or quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, and we don't need Aaron Rodgers. And I took that as a good thing. Sign of confidence from DeShon Elliott to those throwing the football in Pittsburgh. And I think it could be a little mixture of both. Now, I want to ask you your comments about the situation, but Stephen A. Smith said this, quote, I respect DeShon Elliott, which I bet you he doesn't even know who he is. I like him on the Steelers, but he might need to keep his mouth shut. Leave that to Mike Tomlin, to let Mike Tomlin say that. Let one of the executives say that, or if you're going to let a player say it, let it be somebody like TJ Watt. I just don't want that DeShon Elliott should have said what he said. I don't think he's in position respectfully to say that kind of stuff. I want your opinion, but my only comment on that is I think DeShon Elliott is in position to say that kind of stuff because, quite frankly, DeShon Elliott is the character who's supposed to say that kind of stuff. TJ Watt's the guy who's supposed to say, we'll welcome all. I'm from Wisconsin. We're nice, leadership in the Pittsburgh Steelers. DeShon Elliott's the guy who's supposed to stand in the background and say, screw that. No. He's the villain. That's what he does. I know you saw it instantly. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd dive as deep as you did into the reason that DeShon Elliott said what he said. I think DeShon just says what he wants to say. I don't think it's behind, he knew that Rodgers wasn't coming because he knows that's Justin Fields. So he could say this, or he believes in Justin Fields. So he knows he can say this. I think he, face value, looked and saw that somebody thinks Aaron Rodgers is coming to the Steelers, yeah, no, I'd rather not. And I think he just posted that. I don't think there's any bigger conspiracy theory here with DeShon Elliott. I think it goes straight from his brain right onto Instagram. And that's some of the things that we either like or hate on DeShon Elliott, because he's just going to say what he feels. He's going to like what he wants to like. He's going to do what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Stephen A. Smith's response, it's in the air of the same thing that we always say about George Pickens, of why did you have to say something? Like, did you have to say something? And to be honest, whenever George Pickens does stuff on social media, nobody has an issue with it. It's the stuff that he does in the locker room that people have an issue with.
Yep.
For me, when I look at this, it's the same as George Pickens liking something that says he shouldn't be traded. And he just says, why don't you guys stop talking or stop trying to figure out something and make something of nothing? It's just an Instagram post. I hate the fact that we've gotten to this point where anything that happens on Instagram is taken as Bible for what's going to happen in the real NFL world. Like, yeah, whenever something like that happens, you're going to look at it, you're going to talk about it. But in my eyes, this is just DeShon being DeShon, and being any other Steelers fan that was looking at that and saying, yeah, no, I'd prefer not to see Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback of the Steelers in 2025.
You're saying leave his ass in the retirement home is just a normal.
Yes. I think that is
the same thing as George Pickens. I agree with that,
but you guys need to stop talking about me like I'm gonna be traded. Like his response to the 33rd team, I think it's the same exact thing. I think it's just these guys sitting on Instagram, because that's what they've done their entire life, and saying, I don't agree, and then typing up a comment. I don't think there is any further thought that goes into it.
I think I disagree. Okay. I think that there is a significant gap between I'm not being traded and calling out Aaron Rodgers on Instagram, because there is an actual other human involved, and smack talking him on Instagram. And don't get me wrong, I had no issue with George. That was just George getting fed up and saying, stop. And I was all about that. I thought that was the right move by George Pickens. I didn't care at all. I don't care about most of the things that George says on Instagram. It's all the stuff that, I mean, George lashed out at a fan. We totally ignored it, because who cares? You know, it's the on the field stuff. I mean, I have no issue with DeShon either, because I think it's hilarious. And I think that's just DeShon, just like you said, that's DeShon being DeShon, and that he is just that guy. And there might not be any reasoning behind it. You might be right there. I don't know if I'd put it in the same category as I'm not being traded once you directly attack a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback that may actually end up in Pittsburgh. Like, what happens? That's the next question here. If Aaron, for some reason, ends up in Pittsburgh, everything just good? We just fine?
Something tells me that Aaron Rodgers has been hearing a lot worse things than he's dusty and needs to be put in a retirement home. So I think that he'll be able to make bygones be bygones if, on the non-zero chance it does happen, he ends up in Pittsburgh.
Could you imagine him and DeShon lockers next to each other, and then right next to them is TJ and Micah, who are lockers right next to each other when Micah Parsons ends up in Pittsburgh? I mean, wild times. Could be wild times.